We will go now
don't
to
need to talk.
Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat writer. It is Charlie O'Connor coming to us live from Raleigh, North Carolina. Chuck, before we get into my questions, what were your impressions of the game, and if anything stood out during the team's post-game comments?
Well, the thing that stood out during the team's post-game comments is that John Tortorella had no interest in talking after the game.
Boy.
I believe he was asked 4 questions. 3 of the questions were answered with one word. Abundantly clear that he was very unhappy with this game. My guess, and this is just kind of going off of what a couple of the players said, and also what tends to be the case when he has these types of post games, I think he was just really, really frustrated with the way that game ended. He was, and as the fans are. I mean, look, here's the thing with John Tortorella, and it's probably it might be his best and worst quality, is that the things that tick off fans are the things that tick him off the most too. And it doesn't shock me after seeing on social media just how angry people were after this game that John Tortorella is also very, very angry. Not even because the Flyers were terrible the entire game. Carolina's a real good team. And there were long stretches of this game. The Flyers played right with them. But to give away the game at the end with a shift like that, I just think there's nothing that ticks him off more. And because of that, we got by far the shortest presser of the year. I mean, in terms of my view of the game, I thought, truthfully, first 2 periods, mostly, I would say, were good. You know, first period, they played about as well as I think they can play against Carolina. Second period, the shots on goal dipped, but I thought they controlled play as well as they could against Carolina. Third period, they score some goals. They're both kind of fluky, and Carolina basically had the puck the entire period.
Yeah.
And then you take a step back and you realize they had 6 shots on goal the final 40 minutes of the game, and you're like, whoa. Okay, so my initial thought was they didn't play that bad, and then you look at the shot counter and you're like, they didn't play as well as maybe it felt like they were playing in the moment. And this has been a problem all year. Like they have the puck, I think, more than the shot counter would have you believe. But that's not necessarily a positive, because that just means they're not doing a lot with the possession they have. And I think you saw that again, especially in the final 2 periods of tonight's game. Even when they had the puck, you know, a lot of missed shots, a lot of missed passes. I'm thinking back to that one, the one goal that the Carolina scores, the one that I thought was the only real weak goal that Kolosov gave up, that was in quick transition. But that goal doesn't happen if the Flyers don't completely fumble the puck on the way up the ice. And those are the kinds of things that we've been seeing all season long. It's just the passes are a tick off. The receiving of the passes are a tick off. Like everything is just a tick off, and it's slowing down a team that wants to play fast. They're not playing fast enough, and therefore they're not getting the easy transition chances, the easy odd man rushes they were getting last year. They're not racking up the shots in that way. And then when they're in the offensive zone, they're off as well. I wrote an article about it today, if you want to check that out on PHLY.com, about the offensive issues. John Tortorella said after practice today, after morning skate today, he was confident that the guys were going to deliver a better effort. Based on his very short presser, I don't think he came away satisfied with that effort.
Yeah, I thought they played for the most part as well as they could against a team that's considerably better than them. They came in on a 6-game winning streak. Like, Carolina's freaking good. I did think a lot of times during the game, man, the Flyers can learn a lot from the way Carolina just kind of fires the puck, especially against a goalie like Kochetkov, who doesn't have the best numbers this year and wasn't very great tonight. I think that could have been a big part of it. But I want to ask you about the Flyers goalie tonight, Charlie. You said you really only thought he gave up the 1 week goal. We kind of agreed. Like, tough night, absolutely, but it's always going to be tough against a team that averages 37 shots a game and has the puck as much as they do. It's high leverage the entire time. But I thought it was a good learning experience for Kolosov. Like, man, if he squeezes that puck at the end of the game, maybe it's an overtime. Maybe they steal a win in Carolina. Whatever it is, what'd you think of Kolosov tonight?
I thought he was fine. You know, I think it's tough to evaluate him because the hard truth is that he shouldn't be here. Like, he should be playing in the AHL. But number one, they're stuck because Ericsson's hurt. Luckily, he did skate today, so it seems like the injury isn't that serious. He's on the trip. Fedotov obviously is a mess. And whether they're doing remedial work with him or whether they are sending him to Ellis Island or maybe a little bit of both, I'm not yet sure. I guess we'll find out on this trip if he actually does draw in a game. But in the moment, Kolosov is the guy, not because they want him to be the guy, but kind of out of necessity, both because Erson's out and because Kolosov is obviously in that weird spot where, maybe he could up and decide to go back to the KHL at any time. So they're giving him the opportunity. Whereas Fedotov, he's under contract for relatively big money for the next 2 years. I don't think he's just going to walk away from that. So they're rolling with Kolosov. And I think given the circumstances, he's doing about as well as one could expect. He certainly does. He certainly looks better than Fedotov. He looks like an NHL caliber goalie. He just looks like a raw NHL caliber goalie. You saw it with the goal he gave up to local product Eric Robinson, and you saw it in the third period in that miscommunication he has with Andre to lead to the penalty. Like, you're just seeing these plays that happen maybe 2, 3, 4 times a game with Kolosov, where you're like, that's why it would benefit if he was down in the AHL for a season or a half season, whatever. Unfortunately, that's not the situation the Flyers are in. So he's up here. He's showing he has the talent to be a solid NHL goalie at some point. And I don't think he was bad tonight, but he's also showing enough cracks that remind you why, in an ideal world, he wouldn't be playing in a game against Carolina, a really freaking good team on the road.
Yeah.
So, Charles, we saw Matvei Michkov find himself stable to the bench again at the end of this game. For most of the third, he didn't take
basically the second half of the third.
Second half of the third. What did you think of his game tonight? And do you think that was a warranted move by John Tortorella?
Well, I haven't gone back through the tape, so I don't know if there was one particular mistake or thing that happened that had him pull. Look, this does happen with John Tortorella. Sometimes what he does is it isn't one specific thing. It's just that, well, I'm going to go with the guys that are going. And maybe he just didn't think that Matvei Michkov was going tonight. So he put him on the bench for the final 10 minutes or so of the period. That's possible. Now, John Tortorella was not asked about Matvei Michkov because he wasn't answering anything. So the chances of him answering a question about Michkov when, like, I asked him about Kolosov and his answer was okay. like he wasn't talking. So that's a question that probably is better meant to be asked on Thursday, the next time we talk to him, when hopefully he's in a slightly less angry mood. But is it possible that it happened because there was one play that particularly angered Tortorella? Sure, it's possible. It's John Tortorella. He's watching these guys like a hawk. There are things that he's told Matvei Michkov, particularly about the being the third man high and not, being out on an island in the offensive zone. They've been working with him a lot on that. And if Tortorella feels like he's not doing it well enough, maybe he would bench him. But given the fact that, number one, he did make a good play on the first Konecny goal, the one on the power play. So he did finish with a point. He's providing something. And number two, it wasn't like he benched him early.
Yeah.
In the third period, that really might have just been, I'm going to go with the guys that are going. Obviously Couturier and Konecny were going. He's sticking with that line. Maybe that's all it was, but I truthfully don't know.
Yeah, we basically said that, like, yeah, this is annoying, and especially maybe, in the final 30 seconds with the net empty, you got 6 guys out there. Maybe one of them should be the 19-year-old with 10 points in 13 games.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I did have to take a step back because NHL PR tweeted out Mish is the third Flyer in the last 30 years to have 10 points in 13 games or fewer to start his career. So it's like, we're already judging him on this scale that is completely unfair. And when, because my question for you about Mish is, what do you think of his shift to shift impact right now? How are you feeling? Because I just didn't think I heard his name enough tonight.
No, I didn't think he was very good at 5-on-5. And there have been some games where he's been good at 5-on-5 and just hasn't scored. He's created chances, he's been active, and teammates just weren't finishing. I didn't see that tonight. He messed up some passes he usually doesn't mess up. He flubbed some pucks. On the power play, he had his moments. He obviously does that maneuver, which is kind of becoming one of his maneuvers. Yeah. It's actually the third goal that he's been involved in, that he's helped to create by doing that, that carry the puck into that no man's land between the point and the high slot, and then just throw it in on goal and hope for the best. That might be just a Michkov play that we might need to get used to. It might be one of his go-to maneuvers on the power play when he doesn't have anything else to do, so gives that a shot. So there's still something there. As you said, 10 points in 13 games, pretty good. But it's clear the 5-on-5 play does need work. The Flyers are working with him on it. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that's playing into why he hasn't been as impactful, because maybe he's doing a little bit extra thinking rather than just reading and reacting, because he's trying to think like, okay, I got to be that third man high. I can't just, hover down near the goal line and wait for a pass like I would do naturally. And maybe because of that, he isn't being as instinctual as he usually is, and that's cutting back on his impact. And that might be one of those things where in the short term, it'll make him less impactful. In the long term, it'll make him a better player. That's when it comes down to development, and it depends on how much you trust John Tortorella and the coaching staff. I would agree that he wasn't great tonight, but he does get a point, so it wasn't a total loss.
What'd you think of the Sanheim-Drysdale pair?
Not bad. I mean, Sanheim makes a legitimately really good pass on the what was it, the Frost goal, the one that Frost whiffs on. Great pass by Sanheim. I thought Drysdale made some legitimately good defensive plays. Saw a lot of people on Twitter complaining about him, but maybe they're the people that will just always complain about Jamie Drysdale. I didn't think he was bad. I truthfully, I haven't looked at the numbers yet, so I don't know how they graded out from an advanced stat standpoint. But I saw him make some pretty good defensive plays. I don't think he was a standout. He certainly wouldn't be in contention for my top 3 stars of the game, but I thought he had moments. And given the fact that he was on the top pair and facing off against top lines quite a lot, I thought he was pretty good. I mean, compare that to a player I really like, Emil Andre. He was rough tonight. He struggled. He very much looked like a rookie for the first time since his call up. And again, one thing we have to remember, and I know that last year raised expectations. I know Michkov being here had everyone excited. This is still a rebuilding team. And you're seeing it with the fact that they're developing Michkov, with the fact that they're throwing Andre in there, the fact that they're using Jamie Drysdale, a guy who the coach a couple weeks ago basically said he still needs to learn how to play hockey. They're using him on the top pair against maybe the best team in the Eastern Conference so far this season. This is a rebuilding team, and they're going to make mistakes. I know these games are frustrating, and clearly John Tortorella shares your frustration, but maybe this is more what we should expect from this team.
I got to tell you, Chuck, the way the game ended, obviously, it's just a bummer. I'm really not that frustrated with tonight. Like, I thought there was a chance they get killed. Like, you have the 5th highest scoring team in the league, the team that gives up the fewest goals, gives up the fewest shots. Like, I thought they were going to get killed, and they hung with them. They got a few lucky bounces, but that was bound to happen at some point this year.
True.
There are individual plays to be frustrated with from the goalie on up for everyone. But Tippett had a nice game. Frost finally scored 2 from TK, a point from Mish. I could be a lot more disappointed. I have been a lot more disappointed with them this week, and it's only Tuesday. So I don't have the biggest problem with tonight's game. Do you, Hinkle?
No, I'm really not mad. I mean, like, it's one of those games where it's like, I wish they would have won that game. But like, for the most part, I expected them to get like rocked in this game, and they really didn't.
All right, Charlie. Yeah, it really wasn't all that bad. All right, Charlie, you mentioned your 3 stars of the game, so let's get to it. Charlie O'Connor's 3 stars. Hit us with star number 3.
Star number 3, I'm going to go with a guy who only had 1 goal, but I thought was impactful all game long, Seth Jarvis. He's just one of those guys where, he only gets the empty net goal with 2 seconds left. But I thought he was one of the best players on the ice. I thought he was just everywhere. And he's one of those players where you have to be a real hockey fan to know how good he is. But if you're a real hockey fan, you know how good he is. And he just shined all night long. Like, I don't know if I would go so far as to say he is like approaching Sebastian Aho levels as like a guy who I could argue is like the best player on the Canes, but I think he's in his territory. He's in his area. And even though he didn't light it up on the score sheet, I thought Seth Jarvis was great all night long. Gets a goal at the end of the game, empty net to reward himself. So for that reason, giving him 3rd star.
All right. Hit us with star number 2.
Star number 2, my only Flyer star of the game. 1 Travis Konecny, 2 goals, 2 assists. I loved, and again, it wasn't just him; it was Couturier too. That forecheck goal that they had, the 2-man forecheck to basically manufacture a goal out of nothing. I mean, that's just effort and talent on both of their parts. But Konechny's the first guy in. I mean, he's the guy who puts that pressure on first. He was playing with jump all night long. Honestly, we got him after the game. I asked him a question, an honest question. He gave me a really honest answer. I asked him, what, because a couple of the guys were talking about like, there were positives, and Tortorella clearly with his answers implied that he didn't think there were. So I asked Konechny, I was like, look, you kind of said you think there are positives. Can you say specifics, specifics of positives? And he's like, look, when you're on the bench, you're so focused in on the game that it's hard for me to pick out a couple things. He's like, let me watch the tape and I'll get back to you. He's like, I think there were, but that's more just me riding the momentum of a game more than anything else. And it's a fair point. But for him personally, I thought it was a big positive. I mean, he's scoring, he's producing. Say what you will about, and I know guys like Tippett and Frost got on the board tonight, but obviously they've been struggling this year offensively. Say what you will about Travis Konecny. He's producing. He's living up to that contract so far. It's not on him that this team is struggling offensively, and tonight he showed it. That reason, he's my second star.
Yeah, and I thought that goal was indicative of something they kind of did well, at least better than they have. And that's get in and get second chance opportunities, create some turnovers down low, get into the forecheck, be in the offensive zone. Didn't show itself on shots on goal tonight, but it was at least time that Carolina couldn't be transitioning to offense. And that's a change for this team. The bar is low with the way they've started this year. I'm not that upset about tonight, like I said. All right, Charlie, star number 1.
Yeah, I think this is a gimme. I mean, it's Marty Necas. Like
he's on one this whole season.
He's making a star turn this year very clearly.
Yes.
And he's on a hot streak. Obviously, he's not going to continue to score like 3 points a night like he's been doing for the past couple of weeks. But this isn't a fluke. I mean, you're watching this guy on the ice and he's everywhere. I mean, he's flying around, he's doing spinoramas, he's skating the entirety of the offensive zone. This is a guy playing with a ton of confidence. This is a guy who's making a lot of teams wish they would have ponied up whatever price Carolina was asking for him this summer, because holy crap, like this reminds me, if I'm going to make a comparison, this game, and granted, I don't know if this player quite got the same like ridiculous scoring hot streak that Necas is on right now. It reminded me of watching Lafreniere last year, where you're just like, oh, he's figuring it out. He's figuring it out. And Necas had a good year last year. I think he scored something like 50 or so points. He's had good years in the past. It just looks like he's taken a big step forward. And, for a Carolina team that I think some of us were skeptical. I mean, I thought they were a playoff team to be sure. Thought they might,
some of us weren't, Charles.
Thought they might take a little bit of a step back with the weakness on the blue line. But if guys like Necas are stepping up into becoming legitimate stars, they're not going to take a step back. And if he can hold this form, I mean, damn, that's a player. He was the clear-cut best player on the ice tonight and the obvious number 1 star.
I feel like he's been watching a little bit of Saquon Barkley tape with the number of spin moves he's breaking out there. I was waiting for him to try to leapfrog somebody, but we didn't quite get that. He did put on a little bit of show in the offensive zone, though, Chuck. Before I let you go, did you get Tippett or Frost tonight?
We did. We actually got both of them.
Oh, okay. Anything interesting from them? Was Frost just kind of like monkey off the back, or, hey, we lost. Yeah, I finally got one. Cool. I thought Tippett was really good tonight for the first time in a while.
Yes.
He had one of those Tippett games where, yeah, he had a goal and an assist, and that's what we need. But also on the shifts he didn't score, I still noticed him.
I would agree. I like Tippett's game. Frost's game I didn't particularly care for, except for the fact it's good to see him finally score a goal. Like, hopefully that gets him a little bit out of his own head and feeling better about his game. The problem is, and this is something that you run into with post-game interview access, like, we made the request when the game's tied. And we're thinking, if they win, these guys are going to be real excited. They're going to be able to give, like, interesting quotes about, breaking their slumps and how happy they are, and they'll be in a good mood. Then when you lose the way they lost, like, I'm not saying they were rude, because neither of them were, but neither of them wants to talk after a game like that, after it ends the way it did. Frost was happy he scored, to be sure, but he was more bummed they lost, and same thing went for Tippett.
No, and that's to be expected. Like, even if he's feeling, oh man, I got one, or Tippett, like, I had a nice game finally, like, you can't be sitting there celebrating when you blew a game in the final 30 seconds. So that's to be expected. Maybe we'll get more out of them on this trip. Charlie will be back with us. You're on tomorrow's show. Is that happening? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I should be good to go for tomorrow's show. Yes.
I don't know the schedule.
I'll be remote, obviously, but I'll be there.
I thought you were coming home and then going down to Tampa. No. So that's Charlie
on the private jet, right?
Yeah,
on the private jet, of course.
Yeah.
That is Philadelphia's number 1 hockey beat writer coming to us from Raleigh, North Carolina. He'll be with us tomorrow, and he'll be in Tampa for post-game as well, and the rest of this trip. So, Charlie, I will talk to you tomorrow, my friend.
Farewell, gang. Have fun.
like the mayor.